Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on evolving the pension plan members' experience. I'm Bill Foster, co-head of plan operations for Commonwealth. Thank you all for joining us today. For those of you who aren't familiar with Commonwealth, we're a mission-driven business working to expand access to retirement security. We do this in a couple of ways. We work with associations, unions, and other large sector groups to design, manage, and grow high-quality collective retirement plans for communities of workers who lack access to traditional pension plans. We also partner with leading institutions on high-impact strategic initiatives to improve the retirement systems in Canada and their outcomes. We believe strongly in the Canada model of pension plans and are excited by this opportunity to advance ideas that are useful for DB administrators. In planning this webinar with my colleague Jennifer Brown, we thought about what would be useful to us in our past lives as chief pension officers at a couple of large plans. We're grateful to have with us today three expert panelists who will be presenting. The first one will be Peter Shena. He's the Executive Vice President and Chief Pension Officer of the Ontario Pension Board. The next one is Charley Butler. She's the Senior Managing Director of Member Services of the Ontario Teachers Pension Plan. And last but not least is Jennifer Brown, co-head of Plan Operations at Commonwealth and the former Chief Pension Officer at Owners. Our webinar format includes three presentations from our panelists, roughly about 10 minutes each, followed by a Q&A after all three presentations. You're welcome to submit a question at any point by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Before we get to Peter, Charley, and Jennifer, I wanted to briefly frame our conversation today. Canada is home to pension plans that are globally recognized around the world for their excellence, not just for investments, but also for client services. Many folks on the line today are from these plans. In 2018, Commonwealth worked with the World Bank on a study charting the evolution of this model. And one of our conclusions was the Canadian pension plans achieve this excellence through a process of continuous evolution, changing and adapting to the new challenges. Recent trends have seen new challenges and new opportunities for Canadian pension plans. With the baby boomer generation aging, there's an unprecedented number of people entering retirement. Many of these folks are looking to their pension organization to help beyond providing good service. The sophistication of the member experience has not always kept pace with the evolution on the investment sides of these plans, and member expectations are rising, particularly through exposure to other financial activities and fintechs, which are invested heavily in user experience. People are under more financial stress, and despite a solid underpinning from their DB pension plan, members are not immune, as many are facing challenges from the COVID-19 impacts. And finally, plans themselves continue to be under pressure to demonstrate value for money to governments and other stakeholders. These trends pose the question, how can pension plans respond to these challenges and find opportunities to better serve their members? Our panel today seeks to share some experience that will provide some insight on that question. Before I turn it over to Peter, I think it's worth highlighting for a moment the kind of financial services environment that members face outside of their pension plan. Canadians pay some of the highest fees in the world for savings outside their pension plan. The chart you're seeing here is from Morningstar Research, which consistently ranks Canada one of the worst performers on their global survey of mutual fund fees, despite the industry pressure to continue to lower fees. Another significant challenge is advice, and we'll address this today. It is very challenging for DB members to get appropriate and particularly independent advice on key retirement questions, such as whether to take the commuted value when they terminate their employment. With that said, let's start things off with Peter, who will talk about OPB's experience providing in-house financial planning services for its members. Peter?
Thank you, Bill, and good afternoon, everyone. Before I get into our service delivery model, I did want to give you a little bit of background of who the Ontario Pension Board is. We're the administrator of the Public Service Pension Plan, and it is a contributory defined benefit plan sponsored solely by the Government of Ontario. We have approximately 90,000 active and retired members and about $27 billion in assets. And in 2015, we introduced a service delivery model, which included registered retirement consultants and certified financial planners on staff. And I'll get into the detail of our model shortly, but first I wanted to speak to the current environment, provide you some context on why we arrived at the decision that we did and developed the service delivery model that we did. So pension matters are complex, and people's decisions are critical. And the current environment reinforces the need to help our members with these critical decisions about their pension. Currently, we're experiencing a global pandemic, social unrest, economic uncertainty, which creates higher levels of fear. And people are scared. They're scared for their health. They're scared for their family members' health, and they're scared about their finances. And fear makes people emotional. And we know that fear, emotion, and finances is not a good mix. That makes people vulnerable. And vulnerability makes people susceptible to incomplete and confusing information. And a recent example is there was excuse me, articles in the media regarding withdrawing computed values from defined benefit pension plans. But in reading those articles, there was key pieces of information that were missing from that article. And number one is, at least in Ontario, you have to quit your job in order to withdraw your commuted value. So really, they're basically suggesting that you quit your job in the middle of a global pandemic. No mention also about the tax impact of withdrawing funds. Not all the money gets transferred to a tax-sheltered retirement vehicle. A good chunk of it will be taxed immediately. And also no mention about the risks that the individual is taking on. They would now be entirely responsible for the investment decision risk, market risk, as well as the decumulation risk, or spending all their money before they pass away. So aside from the current environment, we've also experienced cases where members were making bad decisions, and we just couldn't stand by and let that happen. And watching these decisions being made by people who were influencing these decisions, external advisors, and these external advisors don't always have their interests are not always aligned with the best interest of the individual or the member. And as an external advisor, I include family members. They also come to the table with their own agenda and not necessarily the best interest of the members. So we got tired of hearing, where were you before when I really needed you? And we found that, other financial institutions were sending wealth management teams to meet with clients that had an opportunity to withdraw commuted value. And we were calling them and asking them if they needed help with filling out the forms that they needed to fill out in order to complete the transaction. So how does all this reinforce our delivery model? Well, our delivery model is focused on understanding the client and understanding what it is exactly what the client needs. We know that pensions are complex, and we also know that decisions are complicated. So our service model slows the process down. It's not based on speed per se, and it's built on three key components. Number one is triage. And the triage is the first line of contact with OPB, and this is where it's our client care center, and it is staffed by registered retirement consultants. And their job is to explore the interaction with the client, understand what is the nature of the interaction and the nature of the question, delve deeper into it to understand, is it a simple transaction? Is it something that could be completed online with a little bit of our support? Or is it something that could be dealt with on the spot by the client care staff? Or is it more complex? And then does it get moved on to the transaction support? And transaction support is basically the team that ensures that all the information needed to complete a transaction is gathered. They ensure that all the steps and documents are properly submitted and properly completed, and they ensure that the entitlement is properly calculated before moving on or completing the transaction. Or is the matter so complex that it requires decision support? And so if you can switch to the next slide. So our decision support team is staffed by professional advisors. They're certified financial planners, and they are our staff. They're not contracted out, and they understand that the issues that the members face are complicated and that good decisions are critical. They last a lifetime. So it's important that the members have the information that they need and the understanding that they need to make a right decision. So the more complicated matters are referred to our client service advisors. Again, these are certified financial planners, and they help that client put the pension decision into perspective. How does that decision fit into the broader impact of their overall financial health? It's with that understanding then that members can make better decisions. How do we engage with our clients? We engage directly by phone, by video, and what seems like a lifetime ago, in-person one-on-one meetings. But hopefully we'll get back to in-person meetings in the near future. We also encourage these members or clients to bring their spouse or partner to the meeting. And if they have an external advisor that they usually deal with, if they want to bring that advisor to the meeting, then we encourage them to bring that person along as well, so that they could be part of the discussion and the conversation that takes place. The one solid piece of support that we provide is we come to the table without an agenda. Our compensation, or client service advisors' compensation, is not based on on the member's decision. It's based on the quality of service that they've provided to the member, and they help the member with all aspects of the decision, including past service purchases, and helping them with cost-benefit analysis as to whether or not to purchase a period of service or not, marriage breakdown and how that impacts their pension and other financial health for that individual. Of course, retirement, the decision to retire, not only understanding the income that they would receive from the pension plan, but just as important, what their expenses are going to be in retirement, and how does the expenses and the income align with the goals and expectations that they have in retirement. So this is just one part of the decision support that's provided. If you can go to the next slide, please. So in addition to the meetings, we support clients through education programs and online tools that we have. With respect to the education, we plain language all our information and provide it on the web. We provide retirement and financial literacy workshops, and also client education seminars. And the seminars and the workshops are really built around eliminating fear, eliminating confusion, and engaging and encouraging the clients to get into the discussion about their retirement and their broader financial goals and financial health. And with the workshops, these are we combine them with other members that are in similar age group or similar stage in their careers, so that they are seeing that their peers and coworkers and other members of the plan have the exact same fears and concerns that they have, and they work with the financial advisor in the room to support them through their decisions. With respect to the online tools that we have available, apart from the suite of transactions that are online, we have a pension estimator, we have a buyback calculator that does cost-benefit analysis for the member. And also, of course, we have a retirement planner. And again, the retirement planner not only helps the member understand all sources of income in retirement, It helps the individual also understand what they're going to be spending in retirement, the regular expenses that they would have, as well as the cost of their hobbies, goals, and other plans that they may have in retirement. And we strongly encourage our members to use the tools. And we not only do that directly, but through the bargaining agents that participate in the plan, we encourage them to promote the tools as well, and they have helped out a lot with that. And the whole purpose is to also get the clients to come back to the client service advisor and then ask the more complicated questions once they've gone through some of the planning on their own. So, you know, a lot of folks will ask us about how is it that you can provide financial advice, which includes estate planning and all aspects of the financial conversation. Aren't you afraid of legal litigation? The answer is no. And the reason is because the case law that exists in Canada supports the opposite. It supports that if you end up in a dispute with a client or a member that has made a bad decision, the courts are more likely to side with the member, saying that you, as the pension expert, understood that this member was making a bad decision, and you did nothing to bring that to their attention or to help them understand what their options are and the impact of the decision that they would make. So in our view, it is taking this approach as actually risk mitigation and not actually expanding or increasing the risk that we face. And if you flip to the next slide, please. So beyond our existing programs, we are continuing to build out on our targeted programs, and that is identifying groups in various stages of their career and creating information and programs that support the decision making in each of those categories. Those that are over 50, they pay attention to us. They're mostly engaged, so we have no real trouble engaging them. They're starting to think about retirement or thinking a lot about retirement, so we have their attention. Doesn't mean that we don't have to continue to improve the information and the programs that we have for them. It just means that they're already engaged. Where we really want to spend some more time in building out the programs that we already have is really the younger early career members and the mid-career members. We want them to get engaged early, and we want them to continue to understand or to build out their planning, the importance of planning, the importance of having goals, and understanding that the earlier that they get started, the better off they will be in understanding what they may need to do to supplement their retirement income through other programs beyond what the pension plan provides. So at the end, these programs have been very well received by our clients, and client survey results have been very positive. Our stakeholders and bargaining agents that have members in the plan have been very, very supportive of the program and recommend to their membership that they meet with the client service advisors that are available through the PSPP or OPB. And the plan sponsor, the Government of Ontario, has been very supportive of the program as well. So in the end, our goal is really to ensure that our members are actively engaged in planning for and managing their retirement. So I'll stop there and turn it back to Bill.
Thank you, Peter. Very thought-provoking. We'll now move to Charley Butler, who will tell us how the Ontario Teachers Pension Plan has been capturing and responding to member needs through improved technology and innovative services. Charley.
Thank you. Just checking you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you.
Clearly.
I've been working virtually too long now to not check that. So thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. And big thanks to Commonwealth for inviting me along to this webinar, particularly to talk on this subject because it's one that I'm super passionate about. And it's hard to share everything that we're doing and the way we've approached this in 10 minutes or less, but I'm going to do my best. So if you take us to the next slide, Jeanette, please. So this is a quick look at the membership profile. I think a lot of people are aware of who the Ontario Teachers Plan are, but we serve any teacher in Ontario. And we have, yes, a total of around 330,000 members right now. Take us to the next slide, please, Jeanette. I don't want to pause on that too much. We have a long history in the plan of focusing on the member service, and we have a fantastic relationship with our membership group. They are very tolerant of us and all of our challenges in this COVID time, which is really kind of embedded to us the value of focusing on your user experience. And our focus, I think, really has been on defining, member personas, so understanding who your members are, creating stories, and then a huge amount of Lean Six Sigma work in the past. But what we realized 4 or 5 years ago is perhaps, our approach of thinking somewhat inside out about our performance, so thinking first about our processes and how they affect members, was leaving some gaps in the experience and certainly some pain points for our members, as you would expect in any customer service experience. And so we started to think more, what's the outside in journey for our members, starting with what is a member really trying to do at any stage in their life cycle, any stage in their career with us, and thinking what we could do to better serve them. So this voice of the member set of guiding principles, I guess we call it, has really been a process for us, starting to have a group of people who have spent a lot of time thinking about inside processes to think more about what's going on with the members. And through this, we've been able to identify some small changes which actually have had a big impact on our members, and I'll talk a little about that. The 4 premises of our voice of the member approach is curiosity, asking more, what the problems are, not worrying about how we've always done things. Collaborating, so when we run a voice of the member session or a process, we have everybody at the table, from the frontline resources to our data and insight teams, to our technology teams, to the senior leadership. It's a small cross-functional group of people who get together and really look at insights from the frontline, data from our membership, and we have a huge amount of analysis on what our members are doing at any given time. And they really challenge some of those kind of long-held beliefs that you'll find staff in service operations have. Of course, we are extremely data-driven, although data continues to be a massive challenge, I think, for pension plans, first of all, because we have so much of it, and second of all, to really modernize data, you have to modernize your technology. So we're challenged in that space, but we're working hard there also. And the fourth and perhaps the most important tenet of our Voice of the Member program is that we think and we work iteratively. That seems like a very obvious thing. Human beings think and work iteratively, but in fact, when you work in a big service operation, it's a challenge to get people to experiment. So we've had to do a lot of deep culture work to help people understand how it's okay to experiment, and maybe 9 out of 10 experiments are going to fail, and that's okay. So ultimately, this approach kind of allows us to take insight from the front line, validate it through data and insights, and really connect it up with our strategy and insights, where we get to allocate resources to real strategic work. So this has been a game changer for us, really, in terms of strategic thinking. So this is the next slide, please. Some of the outcomes of this kind of thinking, I thought it might be helpful to bring it alive, really. Things that we may not have been focused on in the past, but because we have a deeper understanding of what our member pain points are, today we're focusing on. One of the biggest ahas that we got to out of some of our Voice of the Member work was that we give our members a lot of homework. We called it homework because obviously we have teachers as our membership, so just helps us to bring that to life. So we send them away to collect documents, some documents that they might not have found in many years. We ask them to fill forms. We ask them to go find somewhere to print a form, scan it back. There's a lot of work for a member to do to get some relatively basic services. And as a result of understanding how painful that was, we've landed in some places. For example, we are experimenting with DocuSign. We've been experimenting for 6 to 12 months on that. And basically now, if you're a member, you can apply for certain benefits directly through a fully digital experience. So instead of us having to mail documents out to you, you mail those documents out to a financial advisor or someone to look at them. We can send it all out directly digitally, and you can sign those back. And in the COVID times, it's been really interesting. We've been able to facilitate some almost real-time shortened life expectancy benefits, for example, for members who may really need that in a way that previously we would have been severely limited by physical mail. So we've also been able to extend the capability of our document uploader. So going in and doing some deep voice of the member work in how members interact with documents on our website. We've now expanded the type of files that you can put in there, and you know, if you're a member now, you can take a photo of a document and upload it straight away, which is really has uplifted the amount of documents that we get directly through our digital assets as opposed to through the mail, which speeds up the entire process, not only for our membership but also for us. And finally, the PA intent campaign that I have there, one of the biggest ahas that we came to is how difficult it is for our members to log on to our website, not because the process is particularly difficult, but because they just don't do it any more than once every year or 2 years or 3 years. So user IDs and passwords and things like that are problematic. So through the Voice of the Member campaign, we were able to identify that there were opportunities to extract some data out of the secure web and into an email campaign. And as a result, we've been able to really uplift the amount of PA intent commitments that we get in any given year, really early on in the year, which for us avoids members getting into a really complex tax situation later on down the line. So these are just 3 examples of ahas that we have, but there are a number of ahas that now are really well understood across our entire business about where members' pain points are, and if we had an opportunity to drive an improvement, people have a shared understanding of what those opportunities are. But I did say I would talk about the omnichannel experience more broadly. So these are some facilitators of omnichannel. But I think the fact that we are an omnichannel business has been, again, one of the key ahas of our Voice of the Member work over the past little while. So I think for a long while, many of the plans have been working in what I would describe as a multi-channel approach. So you can come to multiple channels, and you can have an experience in each of those channels, which is somewhat like the experience you'd have in the other channels. So, you know, everybody has voice, everybody has email, everybody has a website, etc. For us, we've been working really hard, and this is an ongoing exercise, but we've been working really hard to join up our channels. The expectation is for us that members, and a key aha, is that members try us digitally first. No matter how many calls come into the contact center, the vast majority of them have tried us digitally first. And somehow those coming through to the contact center are either a fail, in which they should have been transacted digitally, or, you know, yeah, they're complex counseling and we should have wanted to speak to them. And we're trying to get really crisp on who those customers are that should fall in either of those channels. So on this slide here, you can see a little of all of the channels that we offer. I'm going to talk a little bit about mobile apps more specifically later, but this is just to show where we are. And it's interesting, I'll call out on the email channels there, I see a lot of businesses trying to cut down on their one-to-one service email business, because it is extremely expensive for us as service providers to respond to emails due to the level of churn that happens in that interaction, and the fact that really members struggle to ask the question in the way that would get them a good answer. And so we go back and forth on emails. But in the Ontario Teachers Pension Plan, we have clearly decided that emails is still a strategic channel. But what we've done is we've worked really hard to fully integrate it into our omnichannel experience. And I'll talk a little bit about that on the next slide. If you could move us over, please. Okay, this is really one of our most highest volume, I would say, experience. And sorry, I've just lost my lost my screen. Here it comes back, sorry. This is one of our highest volume experiences and one that we spend probably the most amount of time really focusing on. It's our Your Moment Getting Ready for Retirement campaign. And so, of course, throughout the years, we've had many retirement campaigns. You know, it's really important to get members the information that they need in order to finally hit on the button and say they've retired. But we realised that our previous campaigns lacked some emotion, and through our Voice of the Member work, we realised that, of course, you know, members didn't really have all of the information that they needed upfront in order to have a very clean experience with us. And so we focused on a new channel, and through experimentation, you know, which involved lots of different email campaigns over the time to test out which one had more focus, we've learned some key things. So first of all, our members treat emails as a reminder to do their work. So we were realizing that members open emails and then they reopen them a month later, 2 months later, 5 months later. And so from this, we've identified a kind of playbook notion. And so we use our emails, to them as their playbook. In it, they'll find lots of checklists about things that they have to do. They are interactive. They can tell us information through an email transaction. And just from understanding what's the most important thing to members when they open emails, we've managed to get to a 60% open rate, which is extraordinarily high, both in our set of email assets, but also outside in the industry. And we've increased, more importantly, our pension applications that are on the ideal path. So we have now 30% of pensions that go through the full process without having to have significant human interaction, which is our agents. So, and that's both an internal efficiency, but also an external member effort benefit. So we spend a lot of time thinking about our Your Moment campaign. It starts 2 years before we believe somebody is at their earliest and reduced rate for retirement level for pensions. And we really think about it as an educational journey, and it's informed by all of that data and customer journey mapping that we do through our Voice of the Member program. So that's an example of where experimentation and iterative thinking has worked really well for the teacher's pension plan, and I think both members and we have benefited from that. But I'll move now and talk a little bit about mobile apps, because here is an example, I would say, of experimentation that ultimately didn't succeed. And so I guess, gosh, in 2014, we decided, I think along with a lot of other service providers, that mobile apps was probably a place where we could get some really good engagement and provide some really good service to our members. And we pulled up 3 separate apps. You see them here. One which allowed re-employed pensioners to track the time that they're working. One that required occasional teachers to track the time that they're working in the classroom. And the other is our baby steps for new mums, which is partly about, you know, tracking your buyback and enabling you to make good decisions in that space, but also just retaining engagement over that time. So whilst we do get some pretty good engagement in those apps, I think what we realized is if you are not an organization whose entire reason for being is engaging members through apps, then they're a really tough space to maintain and grow capability. And so we were finding that in order to maintain engagement, in order to just keep them alive, in fact, it took us a huge amount of time to nurture and grow those apps. And we were often finding that we were getting a lot of complaints from members because things weren't up to date, even though we had a relatively small number of members on there. And so as a result, we've actually been sunsetting those apps over the last little while. So we no longer offer baby steps. And we're in the process of thinking about whether or not the other apps are right. And what we're doing is we're reintegrating that functionality back into our primary web assets. So I would say Voice of the Member is a great activity. Being experimental is very important. Listening to what the members are saying on a regular basis is critical, but you also have to be open to failing, and that's okay. So on that, I'll start to close, really. I have 3 points. Jeanette, if you can move the slide, please. For our members, here are some things that we've we've landed on as key outcomes of our work over the last 4 or 5 years. Number one, repetition works. I know that we hear a lot in the industry about spamming people via email and all of that kind of stuff, but you have a lot more willingness from your members than you might think. They really want to hear from you, and they don't mind your repeated messages. You need to think very carefully about your omnichannel approach. How do your channels connect? How do they proactively provide information to your members, and how do they tell how do the channels talk between themselves to tell everybody who's managing each channel what's going on at any time? And ultimately, you have to listen to your members. And I think we all have been in our business of member serving for a while. We think we know what members want, but members' needs are changing all of the time. So you have to constantly listen and deep dive in that listen to work out what they actually need. And I think I've talked a lot about the need to experiment. I'm a huge believer, and it's paying off for us. So on that, I will close and pass you back to Bill.
Thanks for that, Charlie. This takes us to our final presenter, Jennifer Brown, who will discuss additional savings options that can help members build their financial security. Jennifer? You're on mute, Jennifer.
Yes, usually hearing me is not an issue. Start again. We've heard from Peter at the OPB that they believe members make good decisions about their retirement if they have a bigger picture of their financial situation. This view, along with rising member concerns and expectations, were key drivers that moved them to offer in-house financial planning services. We also heard from Charlie at Teachers that the voice of the member is critical when considering how to address service issues through improved technology and service support. But another plan that has demonstrated innovation in evolving the member experience is OMERS. Almost 10 years ago, OMERS provided members with an additional voluntary savings option by creating an ABC program. I was involved in that launch and have watched that program grow to over $1.2 billion in assets. Move the slide, please. There are a couple of reasons why plans may find a voluntary savings program attractive. It addresses members' demand, and it creates significant value for members who are saving for retirement. In the case of OMERS, the ABC program was set up to address what members wanted, and they wanted to invest additional savings in the OMERS fund and to receive the OMERS net investment return. However, the program also addressed what members needed relative to retail solutions, how to access low fees, and how to access a globally diverse asset mix that was managed by OMERS investment professionals who also had a fiduciary duty to members. If we could move, thank you. There is good reasons why OMERS was able to address the needs of members. And in 2018, the HOOP and Commonwealth prepared a report on the value of a good pension. And in that report, it identified 5 value drivers that could dramatically reduce the cost of retirement. That report concluded that retirement security can be more affordable. It also recognized Canadian plans for delivering effective retirement outcomes through lower costs from scale by putting investment decisions in the hands of professionals with a fiduciary duty to members, risk pooling, and making savings easy and automatic. By leveraging this knowledge and experience, plans have the ability and opportunity to expand member access to provide value-add additional retirement savings opportunities. But it doesn't mean putting these programs in place, they don't come without challenges. While the OMERS ABC program has enjoyed success, it's not to say that everything was easy. Some challenges that plans would need to reconcile to is for many DB plan members, they have limited contribution room. There are opportunities for members to transfer in, but in many cases, there are limited opportunities on an ongoing contribution basis. The inability of family members, for example, a spouse, to participate in the program. And this often becomes more of a want for members after they get involved in the program. Investment considerations are also key. For example, some of your investments, how it's set up, could impact the timing of withdrawals, for example. There's effort, and big effort, in setting up marketing, education, and promotional material. And that effort is also compounded by the fact you need to do it without offering advice, and that can be a challenge for staff. The time and expense of building an in-house solution, and that includes recovery of startup and operational costs. How is that managed? What is the cost? For some public sector plans, offering a voluntary savings plan might be a good consideration, but the challenges may be a barrier for moving forward. So is it possible to look at things a little bit differently? And I would say a lot has changed in the last 10 years. And with that, there are opportunities to think differently about designing and implementing an additional savings program for members. Also, if the savings program is not integrated within the existing pension plan, a number of design questions can be explored. Some of these questions are how to maximize additional savings. Can the savings option include both the TFSA and an RSP offering? At a household level, many members may want and need to save more to maintain standards of living in retirement. So could a savings program be designed to allow a spouse to participate? Can planning tools be included to help members better understand and manage their savings needs? In a voluntary program, are there ways to help members make better savings choices, such as contribution defaults, or features that will automatically escalate contributions over time? Are there alternatives to developing the in-house model, or are there others, models such as a partnership model? Are there alternative investment options that could provide members with a simple investment solution, one that provides a diversified asset mix that rebalances over time? I'll just end my comments by talking about the business pension plans are in. In 2018, the Canadian Public Pension Plan Leadership Forum looked at the question, what is the future of pensions in uncertain times? One relevant question that the forum tackled was, what business are pension plans in? Is it the narrow view to provide a DB pension plan, or is it a broader view to help members finance their retirements? If we think about this business as being the provision of DB plans, then it will appear public plans are in a shrinking industry, even if overall assets under management in public plans are growing. Whether we like it or not, the number of DB plans in the overall economy is shrinking, and private public sector plans, DB plans, continue to close. Equally, or perhaps even more importantly, the public perceives DB plans to be a shrinking industry. And on that note, I will hand it back to Bill.
Thank you, Jennifer. We have roughly 15 minutes or so to take questions. I would encourage you to put in questions in the Q&A section at the bottom. We have some questions already, so I'll start with the first one on the list. And this could be answered really by anybody, any of the panelists. What strategies do you employ to capture the voice of the member? Do you use surveys, focus groups, data trending, perhaps all of the above? If I could get somebody to volunteer to respond to that question, it'd be appreciated.
I'll go first. I'm sure Peter has a lot to add to this, but since it was the subject of my presentation, yes, all of the above. basically. But what was very important when we started the voice of the member work was to assign the correct relative weighting for all of the different data inputs that you get. And so it was really important to have frontline staff around the ideation table, but it was important to understand that their input is on one particular channel, the contact center. And then, so what we found ourselves doing is getting into the habit of checking every single insight that was coming from more qualitative data points with the quantitative and insight team. So we would say, okay, that's a really interesting piece of feedback. Let's go check if the data tells us it's relevant to the majority of our membership. So we did a fair amount of that kind of analysis. We do focus groups, even in the COVID times. We're running digital focus groups right now. We look at data and analytics directly from our website. We have a feedback tab on our website, so somebody can go live real time and tell us what they're trying to achieve and how it's not working. We have a bi-weekly survey that provides us with ongoing input from our members, which I look at very regularly right now to understand, are some of the limitations that we have around service because of COVID, are they impacting the way members feel today? So we have all of those data points and they all get pulled into the voice of the member. So our strategy is really to get everything around the table at the same time.
Yes, I would agree. Like we also use various or all of the above, I guess. Our regular client surveys provide us with a lot of good information, particularly the verbatims, and we continue to work with our service provider to get better, more relevant information from our clients and delve deeper into what the clients are saying and what the information they're providing. We have done or conducted focus groups, and the focus groups were a key sort of element in developing the service delivery model, and we've done it at least once or conducted focus groups at least once since then. Data, we mine data to get whatever information we can, but also like the workshops and education sessions and the information and feedback that we get from clients there, and sharing that amongst the various groups within the organization to develop programs and next steps. The other technique that we've used through one of our third-party providers is scorecarding, and that allows us to get to a large number of clients without bringing them all into a room or conducting surveys, as they respond more. Members seem to be responding more quickly and in larger numbers to the scorecarding technique. So that's something that we'll continue to look at and continue to draw information from.
Okay, so the next question is for, again, either organization or any organization. So Charley spoke about apps within the teacher's plan, listening to the voice of the member. Has either organization considered live chat capabilities for instant answers to client inquiries?
Well, I can start and then turn it over to Charley, because my answer is short. We have considered it. We are considering it. We are in the process of systems and business technology or systems transformation. So it is something that we are going to be looking into, and we'll probably eventually have it. But right now, we don't have live chat online.
Yeah, similar. Yes, we are considering it. 2 years ago, we re-platformed our telephony capability, and it's now in the cloud, and it has a number of potential capabilities, one of which is live chat. And we re-platformed with the intention over time of bringing in live chat, but we also want to be quite cautious about it, because I think out in the industry there's a generally held belief that live chat will replace live calls. And I have a lot of research that that's not necessarily the case, but that live chat might replace some of your email traffic, and therefore it solves some of the problem that I was talking about earlier with the kind of churn that happens in email. And that churn isn't the fault of email as a channel, it's the fault of email not being a live interaction. And so we're working on the notion of live chat. Last year we experimented, we run Facebook Live sessions. So we have been experimenting as well with Facebook messaging, and our legal folks are nervous about the notion of Facebook as a platform to do that. But we experimented in that space because the question we were trying to answer was, gosh, what would members expose if we were live with them? And would we have to have some consciousness about what they were sharing on the live platform and other security elements there. So we found some really interesting outcomes from that. But members, they don't ask very challenging questions in that phase. It's very transactional. So yes, we're thinking about it. We'll be cautious about our implementation.
Thank you, Charlie. The next question is for Peter, and this is a logistics question. How many advisors do you employ for the advisor to the active member relationship, and how long did it take you to get this set up?
Well, we have 10 advisors. Actually, we have 9 advisors currently. We're short one. We started going through the thought process probably 2010, 2011. So it took us a while to sort of get through the surveys, getting the feedback from the clients in terms of what they needed and better understanding exactly how we could address the client needs. And together with our experience, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of watching members make bad decisions and hearing it from members as well when we reached out to them, that's when we sort of developed the model as it is, and then bringing on the certified financial planners. And it took us a bit longer to get to where we exactly wanted to be, because we offered the positions first internally. So we had an internal competition, and folks that were successful internally were given the opportunity to go through the certification process and get the designation of certified financial planner. So and then what we did is we started with a soft launch. So we quietly introduced the fact that we had the advisors see how it worked, and fine-tuned as we went along, and then made the formal announcement that we had certified financial planners available on staff probably towards the middle or end of 2016, I believe.
Thank you, Peter. The next question is how the organization have got around survey fatigue. It's limited sampling, limited opportunities really to survey people. And with so much changing in the wider world, are people getting tired of surveys, or is the response rate been acceptable?
I'll jump in on that. I mean, we don't have a problem with member response rates. I don't remember what the actual numbers are, but I know that the conversations we have about them remaining relatively high. We recently switched our surveys to primarily email, and we were concerned about response rates in that case, but they remain high, and in fact I think they saw an uptick because of the email. We choose not to survey our members more than once in any 2-year period. So the experience from a member's perspective is actually with us not overly fatiguing, I would say. But I guess the broader question is, we're being asked to respond to a survey for multiple service providers. I think what I would say is we focus on having a fantastic relationship with our members, and as a result, they're very accommodating to us. We don't struggle with them choosing to work with us.
Yeah, I would agree. Like we're not really experiencing survey fatigue. Again, we go out we go out regularly, but we survey clients that have had an interaction with us to get a sense of what that experience was like. So we also found, before COVID, the difficulty we had was connecting with our members. We don't want to be calling them at dinner time or as they're winding down at the end of the day. But we found that with COVID, the engagement for our surveys has gone up, and people we can get a hold of them right away. But also the amount of time that the members are prepared to spend responding to questions has increased, and we're getting a really good feedback from the clients, very useful feedback from the clients. Back to you, Bill.
Okay. Next question is for Jennifer. It's come from one of the audience that's also is a member of OMER's ABC option that was rolled out. They feel it's been a great success for both himself and his wife. I'm sure it was hard work to implement, but how many years did it take you to do so, and what was the cost to the plan before you started to see what one could argue, I guess, is a profit or a positive result for the clients being having this plan rolled out? He does say that he recommends this for any plan to implement because he says it's been a great experience for himself. Jennifer, can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about how much it costs, but any technology that you develop in-house does come with a cost, and then you have to be very thoughtful about how you charge the members, who you charge. In the case of OMER's, they decided to charge a flat $35 per year fee to members who are participating in the ABC program to recoup those startup and ongoing costs. I think there are other options besides just developing in-house that might require less of a financial hit in the beginning years. My view was I always felt that the program could easily bring in $1 billion in assets, but it took longer than at least I thought. I thought it would happen over a couple of years. So it's really hard, and I think this goes to the marketing and education component. It's really hard to figure out what motivates people to save, and particularly when you're in a defined benefit plan and you have the impression that you're going to get a very generous pension at the end of the day. So you need people who are curious, who will get off the couch and actually take the time to enroll in the plan. And that's challenging. And for a DB plan, when you're not used to being in the marketing kind of mindset, it is a challenge. So longer than at least personally I expected to reach the $1 billion. And with that, it would take a little bit longer to recoup the costs associated with setting it up.
Okay, one last question we have time for. A more recent experience for all of us. COVID has forced all pension plans to provide updates to members with quick turnaround. Has there been lessons learned, or are you finding that your existing processes are robust enough to handle this quick response and increased volume of electronic access?
I see I'm the only one unmuted, so I'll take a stab at that first. So it's a little of yes and, I think. So yes, our processes are well established to be able to get information up on the website pretty quickly. But it was very interesting. One specific learning point that I will share is because it goes to cleanness of your web content management setup. Where we teachers have actually reduced our contact center hours over the time of COVID, and most of that is to support the well-being of our contact center staff who have to work very hard in the work from home experience with lots of kids and other family members around. So we've reduced contact centers hours. So that's relevant to our website updates, because of course now we realized how many places we have contact opening hours all over the website. And rather than changing it in one place, we had to go in and change the hard coding in 7 or 8, I think, different places. And so it was challenging for us. So one of our lessons learned there is we have to spend more time cleaning up some of the very transactional elements of our website, as well as focusing on those parts of our digital experience that are really enhancing and enriching the experience. So that was one learning for us.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think from our perspective, the same sort of thing. I think it's keeping the questions that we were getting in the really were about the how's the fund doing, and how's my pension, or how secure is my pension. So getting to the members quickly through the website with information and regular updates has really calmed fears and brought down emotions. And in terms of lessons learned, we found that the processes in place are helpful. Like, we were able to transition from working at the office to working from home relatively unscathed. There were obviously technology glitches and things until we got things completely sorted out. But overall, it has been a good experience, and we're getting positive feedback from the clients.
Thanks, Peter. Well, we've reached our appointed hour, so we've run out of time. But I want to thank all the panelists, Jennifer, Peter, and Charlie, for speaking with us today. We hope you benefit from this webinar, and we thank you for joining us.